Let's hit you up with a Saturday evening transfer rumour roundup from our beloved West Ham. Good evening and welcome back to the West Ham Network. I thought to you I would bring you a transfer roundup. I could be here all evening, trust me when I say that, but I decided to choose the three most commonly spoken about players that are on the cusp of apparently signing for our club. So without further ado, let's get cracking on some of the transfer news coming out of West Ham today. Now, West Ham not just looking at making one loan deal this winter, we're looking at potentially bringing in two. Two, you ask? Yes, I said two. Calvin Phillips, who we know is potentially in talks with West Ham about making a loan move across to, well, not across London, I should say, from Manchester to London. But not just him. Another player cropped up that we were talking about yesterday, and that is Emile Smith-Rowe. Interestingly enough, that link came out yesterday, but was rebuffed apparently by insiders who had a little bit of inside knowledge at Arsenal. However, when Mikel Arteta was pressed about it in his press conference, he didn't necessarily say the player is not up for sale or whatever. He just said he was really happy with Emile. He's in the right trajectory now. He's settled. He's training really well. And, I'm not going to talk about individual situations. So I just wonder if that brings to light the potential that they would be willing to look at a loan deal out of the club. Because, again, if you look at the Arsenal game today, they won 5-0. He made a bit part appearance for Arsenal, and he does absolutely need some game time. And there's no ifs or buts about it. He does have some real qualities as a footballer, qualities in terms of finding the back of the net, and really could definitely add strength and depth for West Ham. It's whether or not Arsenal would want to continue doing business with West Ham, whether or not they see Emile as a player that can step up into the setup for Arsenal. Now, when it comes to like what you could get from an Emile Smith-Rowe at West Ham, he is an extremely energetic attacking midfielder. There's no ifs or buts about it. He excels in running box to box. He likes to go from box to box. And he kind of often looks to constantly go forward. And he's really good at well timed movements. It's something we saw quite a lot of them. And a couple of seasons ago, he was always kind of putting the ball in the back of the net and becoming a pivotal part of Arsenal's trajectory and progression moving forward. He's a ball carrier. He likes the ball at his feet. And he's very clever at changing the speed. So he's a player that I do get kind of excited about West Ham being linked to, because he's a homegrown talent. He's very, very clever and tactical on the ball, but he finds it hard to push into that setup at Arsenal, and that is the key element. Now, if they want to protect this young lad, then maybe he just needs to go out and get the Premier League experience. But essentially, will he have a long-term future at Arsenal? And that is the questionable part. The situation will be whether or not he actually wants to come to West Ham and we can strike a deal with him to do a loan deal. The interesting thing is, in theory, what we're hearing is he doesn't want to move and he wants to give his time at Arsenal. The realistic situation is he's not going to get the time he wants at Arsenal. So he's being encouraged, maybe from sources close to him, to look at an option to move. And I honestly see that being a good fit. You're bringing in, say, Emile Smith-Rowe and Calvin Phillips to the club on loan could be two pieces of shrewd business by David Moyes and all the backroom staff. So for me, if it's what they want and we can strike up a deal with the player, then I'm all for it. I'm not going to lie to you. I absolutely am all for it. But again, like I said, the difficulty will be potentially, first and foremost, convincing if Arsenal are happy to let him go. But Arsenal are light in the attacking outlet, and he may be reluctant, Arteta, to let him leave the club without a potential replacement coming in. But I think this is one to watch. Definitely one to watch. This is not just going to die there. I don't doubt for a second West Ham are looking at other options and will have a list of players potentially available that they'll be looking at if Smith-Rowe does not want to come to West Ham or they can't strike a deal. But this is something that I think could chop and change a lot over the transfer window. So definitely keep an eye on the Emile Smith-Rowe situation for him potentially coming to West Ham. Of course, we've spoken about Calvin Phillips already. West Ham are working hard to do a deal. There's going to be a complication because of the £7 million loan fee. West Ham are looking at seeing if they can try and reduce that, if they possibly can. On top of that, he is on about £150,000 a week at Manchester City. So West Ham are probably pushing for a deal to see if they can negotiate Manchester City paying some of that. And then that circumstances makes total sense. You know, if we could reduce that fee just to say about 5 or 6 million quid and negotiate that they pay half his wages, then he's a very, very good squad player. No one can take away from that. And I think he absolutely makes our squad a lot better. So what do you think? Put it in the comments and let me know. Now, listen, I thought I'd bring this one up to you again. Will you Gnonto from Leeds United, because it seems to be that this rumour just does not disappear. It seems to be that it's gathering pace, even though some sources from Leeds are saying he's not going to leave in this window, and then some sources from West Ham are saying he's not going to leave in this window. But then equally, the same amount of sources from different places are saying that there is a deal in place and he will be playing for West Ham come the end of this January transfer window. This one is an interesting one for me because as much as he's not got a lot of game time in the Championship and his career at Leeds hasn't been all but fantastic, like it's not been great. His attitude seems to possibly stink a little bit. The player there is a player there. There is absolutely a player there. And if you said to me, is he a progression on what we've got out from the left in terms of Benrahma, then as long as we can manage his mindset, then I think there is a player there that could really add value to West Ham and the squad. No ifs, buts, or maybes. I genuinely think this is an interesting potential deal for West Ham and one that I would be reasonably encouraged about us going for. I wouldn't rule this one out, and I wouldn't just necessarily look at his stats that he's not been playing a lot for Leeds, in particular this season. But I think looking at someone like him with his youth on his side, Italian international, Premier League experience, and looking to make the change because he doesn't want to be, essentially, he's already stated years ago, and even though he's negotiated with the club, he didn't want to be at Leeds, he wants to leave. And I think if he finds a place he wants to be, then West Ham and a manager and the coaching staff and the background staff could really nurture what he is, really, really, really nurture him as a player, and he could really add a lot of value to West Ham. I'm not saying we go all out hell for leather and we pay stupid money for him, but I think there's potentially a deal to be done for the Italian international. I think West Ham could maximise his talent at the club. So put your comments in and let me know your thoughts on Gnonto. I spoke to you about Calvin Phillips. That one probably is touch and go in terms of finances. That's what that really comes down to. Calvin Phillips, we are led to believe, is open to the move coming to West Ham, but it's going to be down to finances and whether or not that will benefit West Ham. The second one in terms of, there you go, the image there. The second one in terms of Emile Smith-Rowe will be down to whether or not the player sees moving as the best thing for his career temporarily, and sees moving to West Ham as the best thing for his career temporarily. Because I tell you what, if he comes to West Ham, he's certainly going to get more game time than what he's currently getting at Arsenal, and I think we could really nurture that as a player. And I think if we did want to try and bring him and could convince him, then we'd be looking at trying to make that an option to buy as well, should he get on well at the club. And then finally, William Gnonto, will this rumour that never seems to be going away come back, and will he potentially sign for West Ham? Who knows? But some of the sources are saying he will. There's your little cheeky roundup, your rumour roundup for today. There's loads more to come your way. Of course, we've got Sheffield United tomorrow, so join us all for the match day content. Thanks for watching, and of course, hit the thumbs up. Come on, you irons.